Hello YouTube viewers, welcome to my channel Science to Technology. In today's show, Future Friday, we're going to talk about tragedy of global economy. So let's dive right into it. So what was the dream? Because again, we wanted this dream and we had some good hopes with it. Well, the dream was like our history has taught us that trade always brought wealth to culture. Meaning if you have trading partners, you grow and both of them you grow. That's the interesting part. It's almost like magic where you are creating value out of nothing. So trading is always important and it's a very important growth metric for a country. Meaning there are 200 countries. How do you know which country is going to grow? The one that has a very good trade relationship. If they do not have good trade relationship, you can bet your money that they're not going to be good at it. And not to mention, when you're talking about trade, it's just not like, oh, I'm giving you something, you are giving me money for something. That's how it starts, but it always leads to flow of knowledge, meaning every culture thinks that they are amazing. Every culture, take whatever culture you want. But here's the deal, once you have soft trading, every culture kind of realizes, looks at themselves, looks at the other party and be like, you know what, I don't like 90% of them, but this thing I like this is smart. They integrate that over generations, as in like even few generations as little as like 10-20 years. You can notice that, hey, trading started and these people are doing things how they are doing it. You can notice that, you can always notice it. And trading always happens two ways. So this brain transfer always happens two way also, meaning after trading has started, the establishment has been built, over time knowledge will start to flow with the same route and then money would just become just a thing. Knowledge was the main thing that allowed people to grow. That's why trade routes was so important in the, well, it's very important as long as you have countries. And high speed global trade that we are living in right now should allow new level of growth opportunity, meaning back in the old days we could not grow that much. Now we can. Why? Because we have knowledge transfer, meaning we can solve much larger puzzles because a lot of people are working on it, and not to mention different parts could be already solved in different places. There's like, oh, you have this issue, we have solved it. This, oh, you have that issue, we have not solved it. Somebody else from bottom is like, hey bro, do this to solve that. And that's how we grow. That's why trading always benefits all parties. Unless you are doing it in bad faith, generally it will always benefit it. And the dream of like all the nations coming together and agreeing for a general trade and globalization was that all third world nation over time, of course not on day one, but over time will become rich. This sort of images were kind of like shown about it. It's like you can have third world, but you will have modern world medicine going to them. So, you know, brick by brick, day by day, everybody will grow, everybody will prosper. That was the dream. I'm pretty sure you can agree that did not happen. So let's understand what happened. So technology happened. Well, technology started to facilitate that because again, always need good trade. Wind sail technology was a technology that allowed basic trade. Now, developmental technological growth in multiple sectors, for example, energy, shipping and telecommunication turbocharged it. Meaning the first time we started to do trade seriously in large volume and high speed was when we developed steam technology. And once we have steam engines, we realized we can ship bulk freight, meaning instead of just shipping something that are like fancy, very high value, you can ship bulk freight, meaning you can ship cotton from A to B. You can be like, hey, wheat from B to C. You can do bulk shipping and it can be done very fast, much faster than any other method in past. So that started to turbocharge it. Once we went to shipping allowed worldwide turbocharging. Now you can ship things from, let's say, USA to China, China to USA so quickly, it's like, damn. So energy, shipping, telecommunication, and telecommunication allows us to manage all of that without too much hassle. Not to mention, right now we are using fiber optics network as a backbone of communication. It's light speed, so we are really good at it. But dream was that everybody will grow, everybody will slowly over time will rise. What actually happened is that two major blocks, European bloc and American bloc, they kind of looked at the world, and especially the MNCs in them, it's like, hey, you know, that's not a place where we can help them grow and all that jazz. Those are places for exploitation. So what did it mean? It's like a safe exploitation, because you have to understand, every bad thing that you see in other countries, there is a very good chance it also happened in Europe and USA. Then why the heck they don't have that? Again, they grew up. They were like, we went through this route. It's not like they are magical. They are just like, yeah, we went through this. Like how you have an elder brother who went through this, same thing. They go through this, like they blocked child labor. They went through it, then they learned it's not valuable. They blocked it. So companies ended up in a position where their profit margins were not growing as much as they wanted. But once they saw poor people, like really, really poor people, they're like, what if I do things here? What if I use child labor in China? And nobody cared. Why? If you can't see it, you can't complain about it. That's the biggest thing about human psychology. It's like our ethics is only limited to the people that we can see. Like if somebody says, like in India, let's say I stay in one state, some other state, something bad is happening, I will care about it. If you say something bad is happening in some province of China, I don't care about it. And it's not like bad human, it's a limitation of our neural psychology. It's like, oh, something bad is happening in Africa, who cares? So that allowed them that exploitation vulnerability, where it's like, for example, clothing industry. It's very expensive to make clothes in USA and in Europe. Why? Both of these nations have very strict regulation on what you have to do with the dye. Meaning once you dye the cloth, the dye is very high in toxin. So it has to be what we call neutralized. You can neutralize it. It just costs a little bit of money. So your profit margin goes down. It's not that it makes it unprofitable. It's just profit margin goes down. Instead of making $100 per piece, you're going to make $98 per piece. And yes, that's how tight it is. And they're like, what if we send it to China? And Chinese government, like CCP, they do not care about it. Even the public are now paying the price of toxified water. They're like, just make it. Same thing is happening in Vietnam now. So that's the whole thing. Rich nations started to look at these and they were like, we can go back to the old ways. We can still make $100 per piece profit rather than $98. And you may be like, can't poor people, like, apply brakes to it, like Chinese people and African people and many Indians, like, again, thankfully, Indian government did start to apply brakes very early on. Is that you have to understand that if you're not poor, like India is not that poor. We started from second world. Now we are somewhere in between, like first world and second world. And not to mention, because our population, that number is bad. We have world's top richest people in our country. And like Indian born, our country is producing so much value in IT industries and other mineral related industry and agricultural value that we solid, we good. We're not amazing, but like we good. So we do not have any idea of like how poor people in Africa are, like how really poor they are. What does that mean? That simply means they do not have that luxury to think that far. And again, it's not like, oh, they're dumb. It's like very simple. If you do not have food, you think about food. If your stomach is hungry, you think about that. You do not think, oh, you know what, we should really give a damn about water, because again, if we toxify the water, we have to use that water for irrigation, and that irrigation puts toxin back in our tummy. Again, USA went through that step, so they blocked it. But Africa did not went through that step, and not to mention, they do not have luxuries to know that. So all those things started to create a very bad experience. And not to mention, the worst thing that people say was ever created was this shipping container. Because this shipping container is A, standardized, meaning it works in every country. B, it's multimodal, meaning you can put it on a ship, it works. You can put it on a truck, it works. You can put it in a plane, it works. And benefit of that is that now you can truly do that. It's like, hey, China, make us our clothes. And the shipping, because again, it's standardized, is so low cost, it's actually viable that $2 profit, that like $100 per piece to $98 piece, they can recover almost 99.27 cents on it. It's like, that's how efficient this sort of shipping is, where we have like gigatons of material moving from A to B. So that technology started to backfire on us. Then we come to the cheap labor paradox. So we all want cheap labor. Like, I would love the labors, like a mobile phone that is cheap. That is awesome. I will love that. But here's the deal. When I'm a 3D game artist, I was acted as like cheap labor. Again, like Sony, Microsoft and all that, I worked on them. And they're like, we're going to pay you very little because you are the cheap labor. It hurts. It's the same thing with all of you. If you will be like, hey, electrician, I don't want to pay too much to electrician. Or you could be stay put like me and you're just like, I will do the electric myself. So we always love to, pay as little as possible while getting paid as much as possible. That's human nature. But as long as things are contained, there's a balance to it. There cannot be too much exploitation, too much underpayment. Like, there's a balance. Global market breaks that balance, and world market has too much cheap labor, because while it is true that Europeans had went through the bloodshed and all that jazz, and again, even Indian culture went through the bloodshed, but again, we collapsed after that. Things happen, like this sort of things happen. You have wars, you have basically invasions. This sort of thing happens in the entirety of history. Consequence of those things is that only few places are truly stable. Like when people say USA is powerful, they are not saying that USA today is powerful. The fact that USA have 200 years of democracy, that's the scary part. So be mindful, second largest democracy is India, that is only 75 years old. So that fundamentally means there are too much cheap labor on the planet. There are 200 countries and you could be damn sure that majority of them are not rich. So fundamentally that creates a very, very bad scenario. Now that bad scenario is that development happens, right? That's why like Chinese government party was like, it looks good. It's like, hey, we're going to give cheap labor, the money will come in, we'll have foreign reserve and we start to grow. That is true. But problem is that itself is the problem. Once you start to have the growth, once you start to have development, once you have quality of life, then cheap labor is no longer cheap and now you're stuck. So government could literally throttle up upwards mobility. For example, CCP, once they realized that the cheap labor and the world's factory was no longer working as efficiently as they were expecting, what they did was like very smart. Like what they did, made the exams of rural areas where people are producing majority of the cheap labor, they made the exams so hard that you have to have PhD level in a school in order to clear school. Like they were so clever about it. It's like, what if our exam is so hard that you can't clear it, and then you're like, dude, you have to be the cheap labor now. So they throttle it, and again they have to. If they don't, country can run out of money after growth. For example, Sri Lanka had like amazing growth. Like last 20 years Sri Lanka growth was like a rocket booster. It's like nothing booster growth. They started to become a very big hub for call centers and other things also, like IT services. But here's the deal: the first generation person will work at chump change. They're like, pay me nothing, almost nothing, I'll still work for you. That's how it started. But here's the why the heck that person took that job, took that deal. Well, it took that deal so his children can do better than him. But here's the deal: children now do better than him, and now companies are like, we were paying you 7,000 rupees for this call service center, now your sons, now the next generation came in and they are wanting like 15,000. How about no, how about instead of working in Sri Lanka, I go to Philippines? Bye. And that's what happened. Like Sri Lanka ran out of money, and like that's happened. Like you start to grow unthrottled. Like that's why China is working so hard to throttle their own growth, especially in outer area. Again, the central area is too much high focus, so they throttle the outer areas. They make life in villages so difficult that you just cannot grow. So, and if you do the like, hey, let people grow. Like again, Bangladesh also is stuck in the same position. If they let their industry truly grow over time, again, it will not happen day one. It will happen, let's say 30 years. They will reach the same point where it's like the textile industry that you were enjoying, yeah, no more textile industry. Why? Again, people are demanding more. Now they will move to Pakistan. So that's the whole thing. Literally, after growth, people will run out of money, and that's the scary part. And China's CCP limited growth, Sri Lanka became costly, and again, China is also becoming so costly that Mexico may become the next spot. On top of all of that, automation and AI is just on the horizon, and European bloc and American bloc, they are powerful enough and smart enough, they can actually pull it off, meaning they can literally cut a whole sector of human society, be like, I no longer need you. They can do that. Now, this idea of like, cheap labor, you may think it made Americans rich. Actually, no. You may think European rich. No. That's the ironic part. It actually made them themselves poor. It's like, how? Like their GDP is growing, yeah, their top percent is growing exponentially, but lower people are getting stuck. And that's why you say student loan debt crisis. That's why medical crisis. That's why, like think of it this way, like in America, you cannot go to dentist without going bankrupt. I'm not even joking about that. Like, I'm not even joking. So reality is, how the heck it became that bad? Again, top people were exploiting poor people for somewhere else. If they were exploiting their own Americans, they had to be limited, because again, they would see it. It's like, oh, I'm exploiting this individual, and this individual can like boom me if I do too much. It's like, instead of hey, $98 per piece, I can live with $50. It will still make me, instead of hundreds of millions of dollars, it will only make me $40 million. I'll live with it. I'll make that compromise, because if you can see it. So once they started to exploit, those became hyper rich, but poor people, they got pushed downwards. So you remove low-grade job from your own local area, you basically remove what we call economical ladder, meaning these things allow them to climb up. Again, very painful process. You do not want to do it, but somebody have to do it. And over time, it succeeds, it works. And again, if you are happening in a closed ecosystem of a country, it works. It actually allows, why the heck do you think Europe became so powerful? Why the heck do you think America became so powerful? Brick by brick, day by day, it's a very long process. It did work. And removing socio-economic ladder is like the cruelest thing you can do to poor people. It's like, oh, you no longer have any basic option, where it's like, oh, I will do for very little. No, you have to be paid like a very high amount, and then only then it can be justified. It's like, dude, not everybody can do that. So cheap labor becomes a self-limiting paradox. And AI and automation, on the other hand, is like, bro, I'm going to destroy all of it before you even figure out these things are a problem. Because it do take time. Like China did realize this around 30 years. So it's like, whoa, we are growing too fast. Then they started to throttle back. Then we come to the virus of this world, MNC, multinational companies. Now, the worst part of them is that they have no national loyalty, meaning the company can be from USA, it could be from South Korea, it could be from Japan. They do not care. Like you may think, oh, CEO. CEO has no power. Like there is a board of directors that is so powerful that CEO is like, bro, you are just the mouthpiece. You are the person who talks to people. That's all you are. And I'm not even joking or exaggerating. That's actual fact. So you have to understand that like they never invest. like back in the days, if you watch very old movies like from 1970s, you must have noticed people were kinder to rich people. Why? Rich people always were locally based, meaning they built a factory. Even though they were selling products to, let's say, nationwide, they're like, they have this factory. Then they started to invest in it. It's like, hey, you know what? What would be great if I build it here? I built a school for them. It helps their kids to grow. They will be happy. They will be content. Again, money-wise, I'm reducing little bit of my fortune, little bit. Like instead of millions of dollars, I'm rating still millions of dollars, just a little bit, and I'm making school. People are exponentially happier, and they are like, you can see that in movies and all the history books that you are like, rich people were respected. It's like, and you go to very old towns that still have that history safe. They're like, rich people were looked completely different because they were investing backwards. What we have in MNCs is just exploitative. It's like, who can I exploit? They're not even investing backwards. Even if they came from South Korea, they were like, let South Korea burn. I don't care. It's like, dude, you came from there. It's like, I don't care. So fundamentally, all they do is exploit. Let's say they exploited China, and they're like, China has bad trade relationship, and it's that CCP experiment not working out. Let's go to India. Then they will exploit India. Then they're like, once India start to grow and prosper, they're like, let's go to Bangladesh. You know, they will keep doing this. So they will always leave for cheaper location rather than grow that location. So back in the days, like the old models where you has to have like in 70s, 50s, and those sort of thing, where it's like if a big factory came to your town actually became richer over time. We no longer have that. And they can never lose. That's the ironic part. It's like no matter what happens, they always win. They always win. Oh, China goes down, no problem, bro. We have invested in everything else also. So we always win. It's like, you know, the house always wins. Same thing happens for them. And they can control government. That's how powerful they are. Like South Korea is a very good example because like it said like Samsung was literally becoming a point where Samsung was like, Samsung says who's going to be the president, who's going to do things. Like they were that powerful. Like, and again, Samsung I'm talking about is simply because they invested in China and India. So no matter what happens, they will survive. I mean, here's the deal. They could have invested back on South Korea. Now, South Korea is a dead country. Why is dead? Again, if you study this graph, you understand it. Like, understand this. This is population graph. Do not study population graph by numbers. Like, that's the stupidest thing I see in people. It's like, oh, it's 1 billion. Does not matter. Look at the population graph. Population pyramid, as this called. Basically, how many young people are there versus how many old people. If this line is like this, like, you know, this direction is like this, growing, that's what we call growing population. That's good. India was there in our 1990s to early 2000. India was growing. Then you have line becoming like this. Basically, your population is stabilized and it's at a replacement level. If it becomes like this, like if this line is here, yeah, you did. This is what we call population collapse. Meaning once this generation, basically the people who are born very recently, they come up to like, you know, fertile age, they're like, hey, we cannot replace the population. And they'll have so much old people. It's like, what the hell are you going to do with it? And if you are like ever wondered why the heck China randomly opened lockdown rather than actually phasing lockdowns, basically, okay, this area unlock, bad things happen, they sort it out, then open another area, bad things happen, sort it out. Why the heck they flash flooded it? They were trying to remove this part. Basically, anybody who's above 60, they want to remove. Ironically, basically, pandemic does have a good tendency of targeting people above that. And if you're like, why the heck Russia started the war? Same thing. Russia, before even it became Russia, it was Soviet Union. Soviet Union had a blood war with Afghanistan. It did not work out. They like, this is a male side, that's a female side. They had a small chunk whoosh, out of it. Now that small chunk, again, that damage takes time. Like again, the children, basically the male you have removed. Those male do not directly influence right now, but over time it does. So that pulse, it starts to come back to height to you over time. Basically, they never got married, they never had children. Over time, it starts to pile up. So what happened? They did that, and then Putin got brain damage. Then he did 9 years of another bloody war. That again, another chunk taken out from male population. Then in this current system, another chunk is gone. They are dead. They already dead. So this is the most important graph. It's not the money, it's this party. Basically, in Japan is also this back. So if this line ever goes downwards, you dead. Now, Samsung is such a big entity, they can actually make people's life better. They can pay them more. They can just like invest a little bit more in them. Where it's like, hey, don't work your ass off till you drop dead. Work your ass off, then take care of your family. Then you have children. Then you actually have a reason to exist. It's like, no, I'll exploit. Oh, you are expensive? Bye, I'm going to go to China. Oh, China is expensive? Bye, I'm going to go to India. India is expensive? Bye, I'm going to go to Vietnam. So that's the same thing. They could save it, but they choose not to. And because of the bulk of money they have and the fact that they have such a big pool of cheap labor, they can kill competition and alternative, and then they price jack you. It's like at that point in time, you can milk a customer for everything. For example, I would love to buy an Indian mobile phone, but again, because of these companies power of labor and cheap intellectual property, they can just like, oh, that competitor is making a phone for let's say 30,000 rupees. They're like, hey, are we gonna launch it for 25,000? But you are suffering a loss. No problem. We can endure the loss. Now they endure the price loss. Voila. Competitor dies. Voila. Now I increase the price to double. Now you can't do anything to fight me. Same thing. And they do gain enough power, they can destroy all environmental regulation which protects the environment. And right now, I'm not going to tell you which company or which country, but this is happening right now, is that there is a Western company that went to some part in Africa, and they are doing something that is horrifyingly toxic to groundwater. And they are doing it without regulations. So that's why MNCs are like brutal. They have no loyalty. Meaning if it was allowed to do it in the USA, they will actually do it. Then we come to the sad part of it. Like all that is damage. This is the result of that damage. Broke billionaires, meaning you are so rich that you are poor again. And you can see tendencies of it, and you can see the tendency in cultural level. And if this happens, we did. So basically, you will see the first hints of it is that work so much that you have no time, like stupid people of Japan. And yes, they are stupid. If you work so much that your sole presentation is like, I'm alive so I can work myself to death, it's like you are insulting humanity. You should be born as a worker bee, not a human. But again, they did that, and now they did. Again, look at their birth rate. It's really bad. Again, South Korea actually overtook it, but they were bad. So that's what I'm saying. Like they are so rich that they are poor again. They are working 24 into 7 into 3. Like many of them say, like, 70-hour work week is like, bro, what the hell? What the hell? Like, what are you smoking? Oh, people should work 70-hour a week. No. You are not put on this earth so you can work yourself to death. That's worker bee's job, not our job. And again, how do you notice that? Like, that's how bad it is? Well, they will have zero family or quality. Now, family matters the most because, again, if you have a good family, you can endure poverty. If you do not have family, nothing can satisfy you. You are just an empty black hole. And if you go to that state where you have no time, no family, no quality of life, at that point in time, you are full of hate. And this hate leaks out of you. Basically, you can corrode everything else around you. So you make more money in hopes that it will make you happy. Meaning, these sort of people, they are rich. They are rich beyond rich. But at that point in time, they could not stop themselves. It's like, hey, what if I pay the Amazon workers little bit? Would it hurt me? Yeah, it will be like, instead of gaining $3.5 billion per year, I'll gain only $3 billion. I can take that hit. Dude, there is nothing they can spend that money on, but there's still that itch, that hatred. And you can figure out, like, none of them have good family. Yeah, that's why I said, like, if you do, family is the cell of a country. If that cell breaks, that means you have cancer. That means it's terminal. So you make more money just to make you happy. And when you go through that hatred, more money equals more happiness. Because again, you sacrificed your family. Like again, Japanese people, that's why I'm giving that example. There is like a lot of cultural shock now people are having. It's like people hate their own family. It's like, what the hell? Why? Again, they think because of, if they have family, they have to work so hard. And I get it. It's like, you may think instead of family giving you joy, it's like giving you resentment. And the moment that happens, the end. Bro, your country died long ago, if that happens. So once you get that corrupted mindset, you get a point where exploitation of other people, you will do that without basically shame or guilt. Meaning, you will not even think like, same what he was doing with Amazon workers. Same this guy was doing, making fake promises. Because again, he's not sinking 100 billion of his money. He does not have money. What he did is took a lot of money from market. How the heck he did that? Fake promises. We're going to give this and that and all that. So Tesla, a value should be like, let's say $5 billion. It started to be valued for $1 trillion. That was pump stage. Then he dumped it and people lost money. Who lost money? You and I lost money. Everybody who had pension funds lost a small fraction. Everybody who had what we call basically mutual fund, they lost the money. Basically, it's normal people money. He just set it on fire. He could have just applied brakes. He would be like, bro, I got this. Let me make this technology, then show the technology rather than, oh, I'm going to give you fake promises. Again, he's stuck in that loop. He cannot, like, why this woman, $10 billion. She's like, wow. Elizabeth Holmes, 10 billion. That dude, I don't even know how many billions that dude has. Oh, and this is a porn star. She also did NFT loot. It's like, you are already rich. Why the heck you had that need to go to that extent? Then you realize none of them have good family. None of them. None of them have one individual that they can lie next to and be like, I'm safe, I'm loved, I'm taken care of. None of them. Like this guy, I don't, who even knows how many kids he have, and like second or third wife, God knows. I laughed at it, like when Trump was talking, it's like, the primary reason for divorce is like, financial reasons. Like, bro, you are a multi-millionaire, and you all like, what, second wife or third wife? That's why I said like broke billionaires are very dangerous, because again, they are toxic to everything around them. They corrode everything around them. And they can't just have one house, because again, they are internally hollow. They can't have one house. They don't even know the difference between a house and a home, because they have none. They do not have home. That's why they have to show it flashy, just to feel, oh, I have a house. No, sir. A house could be a small dilapidated thing, but if you feel safe there, if you feel loved there, you'll be like, bro, I'm good. And that's the biggest difference between the earlier generation and now generation, is that they cannot be satisfied. This sort of generation of broke billionaires, they can never be satisfied. They cannot be like, I have a one giant mansion, I have a few $1,000,000 coming in. Even with inflation, I'm solid, I'm settled. They're like, let me enjoy life now. I have nothing to enjoy. They're like, more money, even more money. And they start to like, I'm going to take this whole building. It's like, dude, don't do that. You will increase the price artificially, and then it will trigger a housing crisis. Nobody will be able to afford rents for it. If you look around you, that's happening with this world. So that's the whole thing. Like, one house cannot make them happy, because they do not know home. They are not happy. They will buy everything. Everybody else would be miserable because of them. Then they cannot be happy with one or two cars. They could be like, hey, I have 5-6 cars. They will have 200 or 300 cars. It's like, dude, you do not have enough hours in your lifetime to drive them, but they just want to. That again inflates the price. Same thing. It always comes to us like cars, jets. It's like they are trying to fulfill the hole in their heart, which ironically life is like, no, bro. Life is not so easy that you can buy happiness. And they create fake scams to exploit it. Again, once they get that itch, does not matter how much money they are. Like even this porn star, she was rich, but she was like, again, broken family, can't do much. Dude, like this dude could have been easily like coasting off the success of SpaceX. Slowly over time, he could have built Tesla into an actual thing rather than just a scam, which, be mindful, if investors actually go after him, he will go to jail. Exactly like how Elizabeth Holmes and that weird guy who was like hydrogen truck, same thing. Like he is in that much danger now. This guy's like, why are you exploiting that much? Like you can survive, you can live. Like, oh, you will have only $1 billion of disposable income. Bro, you will survive. Same thing. That's the broke billionaire side effect. If this stage happens to your country, you're dead. So let's talk about the most expensive part of things in this world, ethics. Now you have to understand, without ethics, we dead. Earth has only finite resources, and it does not matter if we go to Mars, we go to Jupiter, go to Saturn, whatever the heck you want to do, go to the whole universe, you will still run against this limitation. Fundamentally, there is a limit in our universe. So chasing what you need is good, meaning if you're chasing, hey, I want to have a house, good. I want to have a car, good. Those things are good things. But the moment you start to chase wants, meaning I'm not happy with, this, what color is your Bugatti? It's like at that point in time, you're starting to go into very dangerous territory. And you have to understand this. Why does this matter? Like, why should you care? It's like, I'm seeing that sort of thing in Instagram reels and all that jazz, and that's very corrosive. It's simply because if a society ever reaches a point where loser percentage goes beyond control, yeah, the world burns. And look at any history, whatever history you want to look up that. You will always find when the number of losers reaches a threshold, the world burns, and that includes that 1%. Does not matter they are royalty, does not matter they are God servants, does not matter they are kings. They are like, whoosh. It has happened enough times that at this point in time, you should be like, yeah, let's make sure the number of losers are always kept at bare minimum. Like people should have a hope. The moment people lose hope, the end. Because here's the deal, you can't use force to scare someone if they are not scared of death. If life is misery, death becomes luxury. At that point in time, no amount of boom boom sticks and no amount of I'm going to do this to you stops them. So this is a very, very important aspect. And what changed? Basically, this broke billionaire kind of like, that top 1%, they no longer know how to apply brakes. They cannot be like, I'm actually stable now. I have a loving family. I have a house. I have paid off my college, basically kids, basically education and all that. They do not stop. They're like, we want more. What if I bought this house instead of a family that's gonna buy that house? What if I collected that house, rented it out, now make more money? Now I'll do that with even more. And now everybody has to suffer because I am broken. So that's the whole point. Empty heart is dangerous for all of us. So they're like, instead, hey bro, you're happy, you're solid, you're good. Relax, apply brakes. Because again, if they do not, everybody else suffers. It's not just like, oh, they are doing, and again, it's legal, does not mean it's ethical. And that's why I keep saying ethics is the most expensive thing. You can find billionaires on top of billionaires, but you cannot find that many ethical individuals. And here's the deal. Why the heck people are becoming so self-destructive? Well, quality family and home are priceless, meaning home is something where you can just come home and feel safe, meaning this is a place where I'm safe. And it does not have to be huge. That's the interesting part. Like people, how the heck our ancestors somehow managed to raise 7 or 8 children in absolute poverty, in absolute hellish condition. And somehow those bonds were far stronger, far more robust, far more enduring, and they survived, they grew us to level us, and we cannot go further. That's the whole thing. They had family and home, and those things are priceless. If you have priceless thing, it's priceless. If you have something that has a price, it has a price on it. So we are throwing basically priceless thing for useless thing. So again, this image is very important. It's a very basic industry, but like you have to understand, we do not work for ourselves, and if we try to do that, we will be miserable. We have to work for someone else. Like, have you ever noticed why does it feel good to take care of a dog? We don't enjoy helping ourselves. We enjoy doing it to others. That's why I said ethics is the most important thing. Just because you can exploit someone does not mean you should exploit them. And I guarantee you, if you have a good family, good home, you understand this inherently. You understand that there are some things that we should not put price on. Me making few more $1 million by increasing rent of this whole area is just not worth it. If those people have homes, they will also grow into a better human. That will create a better ecosystem where I want to live. I would not be like, oh, I burned this country down, now I'm going to escape to someone else's country. No. So that's the whole thing. We are throwing away basically family, homes, this sort of thing for money. And ironically is that once you start to suffer from money addiction, nothing can save you. Like no amount of anything basically. Nothing can save you at that point in time. You are self-destructing on like turbocharge, and not to mention taking everybody around you with yourself down also. It's like what we call corrosive agent. You reach that point, basically you clear the safety level, psychological level, and then you realize there are 3 levels above it and you have none of it. And that's very horrifying to people. Because again, if you are solely focused on that rather than like, hey, am I happy because I have a house? Awesome. Let me apply it. Let me enjoy this moment rather than like more billions, even more billions. It's like all you are triggering is like your own whoosh. Has happened. That's why I'm saying read history, any history, anywhere, anytime. If the number of losers crosses threshold, the end. So that's why that's all there is to life. Like you do not work for yourself, you work for your future generation, and the cycle keeps running, and then we all move forward. If we're like me, we did. So this was my presentation on basically why this global experiment, global trading, did not work out the way we expected it to. Hopefully you have liked it, learned from it. In that case, please hit the like button, share it amongst your friends. That will help me a lot. If you didn't like it, didn't enjoy it, I urge you to press dislike. Press it twice to show me extra disappointment. Please leave a comment because I do try to reply to all of them. Subscribe, press the bell icon if you're free. And as always, thanks for watching.